Welcome to the second episode of the HYPNOWORLD podcast. Today I have Jonathan Moser with me today, based out of Medford, Oregon. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for inviting me to your show, Eli.
Thank you for coming. It's really nice to have you on. Like I said, this is the second episode. I'm hoping to keep this going hopefully every other couple weeks. Anyone who is a hypnotist that would like to join this podcast, please send me a DM on X, Discord, or you can contact me at 541-450-9722. Now, Jonathan, to start off, I think it would be great if you could get into what you do, what kind of hypnosis you do, and just explain your practice.
Okay. Well, I'm a certified 5-path hypnotist, and basically just work with therapy type of work where I'm working with negative emotional stuff, unwanted habits, any kind of limiting beliefs, stuff like that.
That's great. How long have you been in, sorry to cut you off, but how long have you been in practice so far?
Well, I first started with hypnosis back in 2011. I was working at a tire shop at the time, and I wanted to know more about the athletes getting into the zone, that state of peak performance. So I started learning more about that, and then I realized that's a state of hypnosis. Okay, so I didn't really know much about hypnosis then, so I vowed to myself to start learning more about it, and I started studying. I started reading books, just taking little course modules here and there, practicing. I did a big training thing with a lady named Erica Flint up in Washington. She runs Cascade Hypnosis Training Center up there in Bellingham, Washington, and she teaches Cal Banyan's 5-path certification program.
Interesting. And the first question that I'd like to ask about that subject is, how would you explain hypnosis in your words?
Well, hypnosis is basically just a state of mind where a person is in a heightened state of suggestibility. When they're doing that with another person, like if you're working with a hypnotist, the hypnosis helps that person to alter the way that they perceive given situations, circumstances, sets of events, sensations, objects, or feelings.
Interesting. That's a very good way of explaining it. I would say about everyone else that I've interviewed has given a similar response. My second question that I would want to get into is, what are some misconceptions about hypnosis that you encounter in your practice?
Oh, there's so much bullshit out there about hypnosis. Well, a lot of people think they're going to be out of control, or they think I'm going to do something to them. And the truth is, all I'm going to give them suggestions, and they don't even need to follow these suggestions if they don't want to. Of course, they're often paying me to come and have me give them these suggestions, so it doesn't make much sense, but it's a fear people come in with. And in reality, they're in complete control when they're in hypnosis. And there's that saying, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And since it's a state of mind, it's something that I would say probably 97% of the population goes in and out of that state of hypnosis every day. So that's definitely a misconception. I've also found that if you explain a little bit about hypnosis to your clients, it benefits them much greater during their sessions. If it's not this crazy, mysterious thing, it doesn't have to be too extreme, but if they understand a little bit about what's going on, it helps them feel more comfortable, right?
Yeah, definitely. And probably one of the first things that you do when you take in a new client is you have to dispel what their conceptions are about hypnosis because they
Right.
think that you're going to try and take control of their mind or mind
Yeah.
control them or
Right.
do make them
Or
do.
like they're just going to be asleep the whole time and unaware of what's happening, and
Yeah.
that's just not how it is.
Another thing too I've noticed is a lot of people think that they're going to be like they'll have amnesia
Oh
for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
which I mean, I guess if they wanted you to make them erase something, you could, but I've never really met anyone that forgot what the hypnosis was for, what we were doing.
Right, right,
Um,
right. Usually the way it is it's the same as remembering a conversation. The person may not remember word for word what was said, but they'll remember the conversation and the gist of it and how it made them feel and all that sort of thing.
yeah, and I've noticed that more than not, it's actually kind of the opposite in some ways. Like a lot of people will, once they get into the state of hypnosis, or technically like the alpha brainwave, when their brain cells or their nerve cells in the brain slow down, you know,
Right?
things will come to their mind. Like they'll have this
Absolutely.
idea. They'll say, "I have a phobia of spiders," and then they'll go under, and then they will have memories or thoughts like clear up, be like, wow, that's why I had it. Where you may not even
Right.
need to say it, but because they're in this state of hypnosis, it becomes a lot clearer. So
Absolutely.
sometimes it's like the opposite, where
Insight, that's the word.
yeah, insight.
Yeah. That's one of the things all the other therapies kind of lack. Even like EMDR, where they're using the back and forth eye movement, bilateral stimulation to release negative emotions and stuff. They're not gaining the same level of insight there
That's
as they do
absolutely
with
true.
hypnosis.
And another thing too, people don't realize is a lot of the subconscious is kind of like a double-edged sword. You know, it's even unfortunately a lot of, you know, therapists and counselors, they don't really understand how the mind works, and that doesn't mean that we fully understand it, but
Sure, sure.
just a lot of um sorry, let me close it. I close that in Discord real quick. uh but I can just edit that out. But a lot of people who have a certain condition will not know that what really happened was they accidentally hypnotized themselves into having an issue, which is not
Right.
always the case. It's not always the case. I'm not saying there's no real genetic illnesses, but I'm saying a lot of times someone may accidentally hypnotize themselves without knowing it into holding on to like a reaction, like with PTSD.
Yeah.
So a lot of these counselors, they try to treat it like it's a problem they have to remove, when in reality it's not even a problem, it's just a tool that's misused.
Right.
Kind of like hallucinations. Sometimes hallucinations are genetic schizophrenia, and sometimes hallucinations are a case where someone has accidentally been hypnotized into hallucinate, which is something that you could do as like a party trick. You can make someone see something and then you could take them out of it.
Yeah.
Where
Absolutely.
you have to take them out of the trance for that to be set. Obviously,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
situation is different, but that can be the reason why behind certain things.
Sure, sure. Yeah, the state of hypnosis definitely can generate hallucination, and that's not even that deep of a state of hypnosis. In even deeper states of hypnosis, a person can experience negative hallucination, where they not see, not hear, not taste something that is there. Um, Let me give you an example. Like, let's say I'm cooking a meal and I've reached the point where I want to add a little bit of salt to it. And then I look over, so I'm relaxed, I'm focused, right? And you enter the state of hypnosis through focused attention, right? So um, I'm relaxed, I'm focused, I'm cooking some food, and it's time to add a little bit of salt. And I look over where the salt normally sits, and it's just not there. I'm going, oh, there's no salt. Okay. It's got to be here somewheres. So I start looking around in different places, maybe in the cupboard, and I look in the drawer, maybe look in a couple other cupboards, and it's not finding the salt. Everywhere I look, there is no salt, right? And so I start looking in weird, obscure places. I look in the fridge. Why the heck would I put it in the fridge? I don't know, but I check there anyways, just in case. There's no salt. And eventually I reach a point where, man, there is no salt. So I ask for some help. Maybe I ask my wife, dear, have you seen the salt? And yeah, it was right in the cupboard last time I saw. So I say, okay, I start looking around. I look in the cupboard. There's no salt. I look in the other shelf in the cupboard. There's no salt. And I just can't find it anywhere. And dear, I still can't find the salt. Can you help me? So she walks over, and about the time she puts her finger on it, all of a sudden the salt magically appears, right? Maybe I feel a little bit embarrassed, but there it was. It was there the whole time. And so this is how this happens. I'm relaxed, I'm focused, and I'm so focused on trying to find this salt. And I'm giving myself this suggestion there is no salt. So by the time I actually lay eyes upon the salt, my subconscious mind has accepted the fact that there is no salt. And I hallucinate that isn't there. I look right at it and not see it. And it happens to all of us. Could be a person's keys, their purse, sunglasses. I was talking on my phone one time, and I was talking on there, and I said to the guy, I was like, hold on a minute, I gotta find my phone. And he's like, dude, you're talking on it. What are you doing? You know?
I'm
So
definitely guilty of doing that.
I mean, and that's the same level of hypnosis for negative hallucination as for general anesthesia. That's very deep. And it's something a person can reach just in their normal day-to-day life.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting how little it takes for thing a lot of people think that like these big I don't know if you'd really call them tricks, but let's just say tricks for
sure,
simplicity.
sure.
These tricks, they think you have to do some kind of crazy mind control to make that happen, but people do it to
Right.
themselves all the time and they don't realize it. A lot of it's kind of crazy if you get to a certain point because you realize you have so much control over yourself you don't even realize.
Right.
Um, I have a funny story about that too, and this is just
Yeah, I'd love
for
to
the
hear it.
laughs, I guess. But about a year ago, went out to uh, I went out to a small party my friends were having at their house,
Mhm.
and uh, I did not eat anything that day. I just had water, so everything I drank was I should have ate.
Very
That's what I'm saying.
a lot stronger than normal, yeah.
A lot stronger, yeah. And I was definitely feeling it the morning after. I had the
Oh,
worst
yeah.
headache, and don't ever drink and then eat hot Cheetos. But don't do that. Try to like a quick it was a 1 minute self hypnosis. I was like,
Mhm.
maybe this will work. And I kid you not, within like a minute, all my stomach ache dissipated, all my headache dissipated, all that queasy feeling in my stomach just
Yeah, it's like you
completely.
turned it off.
Yeah. I was like,
That's awesome.
wow, this works, you know?
Right?
My next question would be, are there any particular hypnotists that you take inspiration from?
Oh, yeah. The guy did the that created that five path stuff, Cal Banyan. He wrote a book I really like called The Secret Language of Feelings. I wish I'd have read that book 30 years ago. Um, but Yeah, I like his training methods and stuff. Another guy that um, he's the vice president of the National Guild of Hypnotists. His name's Don Motton. I like a lot of his training material. I've taken some of his training modules and stuff, and I'm really digging that. Um, I've taken some trainings modules from like Gerald Kine. He had an Omni hypnosis. He's retired now, um, but he has some really cool stuff out there. Um, there's a lot of other material I've either read or studied here and there. Can't really think of their names right off the top of my head. The Obviously any teachings from like the classic stuff, like the Milton Erickson, that's all good stuff. Very interesting. He was a very inspirational person. I believe he had polio when he was young, and he
Yeah.
used hypnosis to overcome that to the point where he could function.
Technical difficulties cut the video off, so sorry about that. We'll resume in 3 seconds.
Same.
Technical difficulties aside, we're still here.
Yeah. So you're right. Actually, I have his book.
Mhm.
My library's kind of messy back there, but that big gray book
That's
in
okay.
the background. And you were on the dot. He was crippled by his polio, or he was almost crippled by his polio, and he gave himself back his mobility with hypnosis, which is
Yep.
wild to think about that being possible.
It really is. Um, Definitely a lot of possibilities to be explored there. There's been a lot of, if you get on like any college's library for like peer-reviewed journals, or maybe Google Scholar, or even like PubMed for the National Institute of Health, there's a whole bunch of different studies that hypnosis has been used for tons of stuff around the world. So, I mean, there's, I'm not sure if they've quite understood the limits of what it can do yet.
You know, honestly, I don't think they do. There's, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people, what they come in for like IBS. Think about
Mm-hmm.
it. They come in to get rid of allergies, retrain their immune system response, which is
Right.
not really more like not a cure, but more like a reframing, I guess. But I mean, there's
Yeah.
stuff even in that book that I don't even know if I could repeat because it would just sound so absolutely insane that if I were to say it, you probably would completely discredit me and call me insane. But like, there's like you're it all has to come down to your nervous system. You know,
Right.
one thing that I'll add on that a lot of people don't get this is like your mind and your brain are different.
Sure.
Your mind is like software. Your brain's like computer. You know, the computer can't function without the code. The code tell you,
Right.
you know, you can turn it on, but it's just there. Your body is like a computer, and a lot of health problems even are the wrong code giving or the wrong code being given to the parts. So people think
Right.
there's an issue with the parts, and they keep trying to treat it at the physical level when it's the instructions. I mean,
Right.
same with like the pH level, the acidity level of your blood. It's controlled by the subconscious through the nerves. The nervous system controls it, basically,
Absolutely.
and the subconscious
The
controls your
autonomic
nerves.
nervous system. Exactly.
Yeah, and it makes you think what's the limits to that, you know? And then you have certain branches like epigenetics. I don't know if you've delved into that with the training note, but there's on your cells there's or on some of your cells there are special proteins which
Mhm.
act as like antenna to the environment, which can tell the cells what kind of proteins to create and also which genes to use. So
Hmm.
who's to say you technically couldn't somehow affect your genetics? You know, which is already possible to a big degree, but if you really, really tried, I don't know. Who knows what the limits would
Yeah.
be?
Right. Or limits, possibilities. Maybe the limits are just in whatever we can think of as the possibilities. I don't know.
I mean, that's what it seems like. No one. I don't think there's. I don't think there's really anyone testing it. I mean, you have hypnotists, but you don't really, um, it's also all fields of science are kind of they're scattered. It's kind of sad, really, if you think about it. You have let's just say hard biologists. You have on the other side, you have psychologists, and then you have hypnotist, which is its own field. But all these things are related, which is
they definitely are.
So you have biologists, and some biologists are not really understanding, say, genetics, because they don't understand how your emotions and thoughts and beliefs can affect your epigenetic changes, epigenetic expressions, which basically, like I just said, it just means how your mood and feelings affect which genes are used. Being happier means better genes are used. Being more depressed means worse genes are used, like a switch. But they don't know it, or many of them don't know it, because they don't understand the psychological aspect, and the psychologists don't know the physical aspect. So the psychologists,
yeah. A quick note on that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think this is just my opinion, of course, but I think that the training programs in colleges kind of teach people that these are separate things and that they're not connected.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it seems like a lot of colleges really don't do a very good job of explaining like almost any subject, especially psychology. I don't understand how you could study psychology for 7 years and like be so awful at it. I don't mean you, but I mean like a lot of
sure.
Maybe not all psychologists, but there's definitely some very good psychologists. But I've heard some of the stupidest stuff being said by psychologists. Like you literally could go to Audible and get like a subscription and listen to audiobooks. You could listen to 2 audiobooks, and in a lot of cases, more practical information than a practicing psychologist of 20 years. Especially some of the stuff like Jordan Peterson, and I don't want to cut off what you're saying, but we'll circle back to that.
No, you're good.
Jordan Peterson, who actually blocked me on Twitter, by the way, which is funny that happened. But I read some of his books, and it was one thing he said that was it's like I'll edit this to sound coherent, but
yeah, that's good.
It was. But one thing that like I heard Jordan Peterson say is that with post-traumatic stress disorder, because how it affects the fear response in your brain, it enlarges the hippocampus and amygdala, so the memory part, and then the fear stress response. And he claimed that if you go through the therapy portion to calm down the triggers, that no matter what you do, the amygdala will remain the same size. But anyone that has any understanding of how the human brain works knows it's absolute bullshit, because your brain is a constantly changing organ.
Right.
It's actually, it's not at all true. And actually, I studied this to make sure that I was getting the right information.
Right. Yeah. So he was just saying it instead of actually quoting some actual studies or anything.
Yeah. So, not only that, but that's like such a fundamental understanding of the brain. So you think like a 40+ year psychologist who's been doing it over 40 years would understand a simple, fundamental, understanding that your brain could shape itself around what you think about, basically.
Right.
And it's crazy because he knows how to hypnotize people.
Sure.
He knows hypnosis. He's actually talked about him doing that for like he had a patient he had a patient who lucid dreamed, and he like hypnotized his patient to lucid dream to like let go of a phobia or something like that. But that's just an example. you know, and I'm not trying to talk bad about health professionals, because there's plenty of ones that are good at their jobs. There's plenty of professionals that are,
Right.
you know,
I I
yeah,
think I might know part of the reason for this. So like
yeah,
mental health is the only medical profession that doesn't do any imaging whatsoever of the organ they're trying to treat.
yeah,
Um, so like you go to an orthopedist, you got a torn rotator cuff or something like that, and you think that might be what's happening, or they think that might be what's happening. What do? They send you to get an MRI. They send you to get a CT scan. You know, they want to see what's going on in there before they treat it, right?
yeah.
Well,
But
they don't do that with mental health. They don't go scan the brain to see if there's a tumor causing a problem, or um, if there's anything weird going on in there, or there's. I would imagine that there's something like that. Actually saw a YouTube video about a guy that was trying to promote using imaging to help more accurately treat um, mental illness. I can't remember the guy's name. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
yeah, well,
But yeah,
I think what it is, and maybe this is just speculation, but you have like ancient civilizations where, so you have two opposing forces, where, let's say in the past, maybe they believe in magic. Feel however
sure,
you want about magic. I'm just saying,
sure.
one side could say, I'm going to put spells on you so that my soldiers are stronger and your soldiers are weaker. And the other
Right,
side could say the same thing. So whether or not magic is real, I personally think that there's real magic. But if they believe in it, if they believe that spells have been put on them, now they're weaker.
right.
If the soldiers on the opposite side believe that, oh well, they put this spell on me using this deity or this energy or whatever, however they believe it,
Yeah,
now they're all weaker. Whereas maybe if they didn't believe that, it wouldn't have been a thing. I think that a lot of times when people are diagnosed with a illness or disease or disorder, what it can really be is an attempt to quell the population into being weak, into having issues that they did not have. That's not always the case. There's definitely mental health issues that are 100% real, 100% genetic. I'm not claiming that that's not true, but what I am saying
sure.
is, if you're under the age of 18, there's a disorder for psychopaths and sociopaths called antisocial personality disorder. And in most parts of the U.S., if you're under 18, you cannot be legally diagnosed as a psychopath or a sociopath. So
Okay.
for clarity, I mean, so if you're 14 years old and you kill small animals and you have no remorse, they can't diagnose you because they need to see that it's not puberty that's the cause of the behavior. But you
I
can't,
see.
but you can with autism. So
Right.
how does that make any sense? You can't diagnose someone who's obviously a psychopath as a psychopath, but you can an autistic kid who maybe what the autism really was just their age. But now that person's going to have that label throughout their whole life when it may have
Right.
been just their experience at the time or other things that cause that behavior, where they get lumped into people that have a genetic issue when it's not at all the same. Because there's a definite
Right.
difference between people that have symptoms caused by an experience and people that have a genetic disorder. But like you were saying, a lot of times they don't even image the brain. They don't assess it.
Right.
They don't even ask questions about their life. They don't ask about their diet. Even with depression, they don't ask what your diet is first. It's probably
Yeah.
a lot of depression is just dieting. People have bad diets. They don't ask that.
It could be. Yeah. Sometimes. Oftentimes, when I think of depression, I'm thinking a person is feeling like they're ineffective, or they're feeling like they're um, helpless or hopeless, that sort of thing. But Sometimes a person's diet can make them feel that way. Sometimes life circumstances can make them feel that way. Sometimes something somebody said can make them feel that way. When people are young and before their mind is fully developed, they take on things that other people say, whether they're necessarily true or not, as if it's true, and carry those limiting beliefs around with them into adulthood and throughout their whole lives. And that can make things very difficult for people. Whether it's true or not, if that's what they're operating on, it's where they're at, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that there definitely needs to be a better understanding for depression. It should be more
Right.
solution based. It should be, what do you need to feel better, instead of just, I guess, immediately take these pills. We don't know if they're going to work or not.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
And for young children, it's often more the parents that need treatment than the kid,
Yeah.
because the way the parents are treating their child is causing the problem. Maybe they don't intend to, but that's kind of how it is, you know. Even people that have great childhoods, a lot of their problems, if you dig deep enough, sooner or later, that kind of always comes back to mom and dad.
Yeah, especially,
Uh,
and on that,
the-
or yeah, um,
so sorry, I
yeah.
was just going to add one more quick thing
No,
on
it's
that,
okay.
and
It's okay.
it doesn't matter how good or bad the parent actually was. It just kind of seems to be how it is,
Yeah,
in my experience, anyways.
and that's the thing too. Is a lot of times you'll come across a situation with clients that it will be something that was said to them in childhood that basically functioned like a suggestion,
Right? Yeah.
especially during those developing years. And this is one added note on that topic is that there's three brain waves. For anyone listening that doesn't know about this, there's three main brain waves that have to do with hypnosis. So when you get someone hypnotized, when you get them to go into hypnosis, it means the brain wave goes from up here down to up here. It's like slower. So it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And there's three
Right.
of those frequencies. So the first would be alpha. So alpha
Hmm.
state is where most hypnosis happens. But for deeper tools, for more tools, you go deeper to the second level, and for more control than that, which is rarely really necessary, but if you wanted to, you could go to one below that. So there's alpha, theta, and delta.
Right.
And when you're a child, a lot of people say that children pick up things easier than adults, is because the brain is at the alpha level for more time
Right.
than it is um, at
Yeah.
the
All you have
yeah.
to do to have a kid get into hypnosis is say the word pretend.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
So a lot of times, most people don't realize this, but their children's brains are in an almost constant state of open hypnosis, and it's
Absolutely.
the things that you say will stay. You hypnotize your child. I think up to the, I don't know if it was 3 or 5, but up until the age of 3 or 5, that's like the most critical years of a child's development. I don't remember the exact number, but
I would say probably
yeah,
be anything before 5.
yeah,
Once a child's reached like maybe 7 or 8, they kind of have a pretty consistent personality and basic set of beliefs and all that sort of thing.
and a lot of times they won't do this intentionally, but they'll say these things to their kids that will not only just be said, but they'll literally affect their physiology for their entire
Yeah.
lifetime. They might
They internalize it. Yeah.
they might like give their kids allergies. They might say, "We have allergies," and then 3 years old they hear, "We have allergies," and then that's a
Right.
lifetime of allergies just from their mother saying it one time. Or they say,
Yeah.
"We have bad metabolism. We have hair loss."
Yeah.
Whatever they could say. But you're definitely right about that. It's a lot of it is related to the to the parents. My next question would be, do you have any advice for people interested in becoming a hypnotist?
Well, maybe start with self-hypnosis just to at least experience the state of hypnosis. That guy Cal Banyan has a unique type of self-hypnosis called seventh path self-hypnosis, and he has a website where you can learn that for free, at least the first part of it. It's just seventhpathselfhypnosis.com. Probably take an hour and a half of their time to go through that. It's a nice, pleasant experience. And there's a lot of other people that have had that sort of thing out there. There's a book I read years ago called Instant Self-Hypnosis that had some audio files that you can download that go with it, and it helps teach you self-hypnosis and ties that to like a keyword anchor, where you give yourself this keyword with the intention to go into that state of self-hypnosis. You can take yourself there repeatedly, reliably, that sort of thing. If you want to learn hypnosis from like a trainer, I really like the training I did for 5-Path, but there's a lot of other avenues there. I would do a little bit of research and just see who you kind of resonate with before going down that path. Cal Banyan has a lot of free content out there, so you can look through his stuff and decide, I really like this guy's stuff, or I'm not really feeling it. Maybe I'm going to go a different direction. And there's a lot of other trainers out there. There's like conversational hypnosis is an excellent path for people to go down. If they want to have their clients not necessarily focusing on relaxation and relaxed in the chair. I can't remember that guy's name that has the training program for that, but it's pretty neat stuff. It's been a number of years since I looked into it, though. That's why I can't remember his name. But yeah, and then there's stuff like NLP, that neuro-linguistic programming. That's good stuff, too. A lot of people have been helped with that. It's a little bit different than hypnosis, but similar. So what I would do is start looking at different training programs, find somebody that you kind of resonate with and start there. And of course, just learning stuff on its own is not enough. You want to start practicing a little bit here and there. And each state is a little different for their rules and regulations. I'm in Oregon. They really don't have much regulation for hypnosis, if at all. The only thing in Oregon is you can't be practicing medicine without a license. So if I'm working with a medical diagnosis, I just have to have a doctor's referral, working with a doctor. A mental health diagnosis, I need to be working with a mental health professional, that sort of thing. And that's pretty easy to get. Doctors like doing referrals. Sometimes they'll even just write it out on one of their prescription pads. It's okay for George to do hypnosis, and they'll hand it to him,
Yeah.
It's not a big deal at all. But like up in Washington, I think you have to register as a hypnotherapist with the state, and there's some other regulations you have to follow. Florida's another one where it's more highly regulated, stuff like that. The National Guild of Hypnotists has all that information available to people to check out on their websites, ngh.net. That guy, the vice president of the National Guild of Hypnotists, Don Motten, he has a whole bunch of training material on his website. I've been going through some of his training modules. I took a training for forensic hypnosis from him, pain management. I like the way he does things, so I'd highly recommend his training too. Never stop learning. That's something that's helped me a lot. Always wanting to learn more, and I hope I never reach a point in my life where I've learned enough. I might as well just be done at that point, I always want to keep learning. So That's just for me, What about you?
I would agree with everything you said. I would say absolutely nobody is an expert. Nobody knows everything. We're all, you can be experienced, but you're never going to know absolutely everything there is to know, and you need to be learning new things every day.
Absolutely.
Start with
You're,
induction.
you're
Yeah. Don't,
yeah,
yeah.
you're doing your client a disservice to not continue to learn and be the best you can be, right?
Yeah, learn every sort of training that you can, even if you don't practice it. I've taken stage training, even though I'm not a stage hypnotist. I've taken
Right.
conversational training, even though I don't really do that very often. Learn absolutely every as many inductions as you can, as many books as you can go through, as many courses as you can to be as knowledgeable as you possibly can about the subject.
Right.
And as well, learn subjects relating to your mind and body. And this is what was said by probably the greatest hypnotist that was ever alive, which is Milton Erickson. Is you need to learn people's
Right.
culture because their culture hypnotizes them. Their culture imposes the limits. Learn anthropology,
Absolutely.
learn biology, psychology, anthropology, and genetics because all these things are related to what you do with people. It affects their genetics, it affects their brain, it affects their biology. And you need to know these things to be the best that you can be.
Absolutely. That's good advice. Um, but just to start out with, I would start with the self hypnosis thing. That's where I started was wanting to learn more about hypnosis itself, and I discovered I really liked it. So more and more over time, I got into it. Oftentimes working a full time job and doing hypnosis stuff on the side, and um, like the business I'm in now that I started in 2020 is Creator Hypnosis, and yeah, I started that in June of 2020, and now I'm doing that full time. Um, but up until before 2020, I was just doing a little bit here and there on the side. You know, that's it takes some time to get into that. I had a family to support, so you know.